Welcome back to Voices of the Regenerative Decade here on One Earth Live. I'd like to welcome our next guests, Joanna, Macy and Lydia Violet. Joanna is a globally revered teacher and author and a scholar of Buddhism, systems thinking and deep ecology. A respected voice in movements for peace, justice and ecology, she interweaves her scholarship with learnings from 6 decades of activism. Joanna's the root teacher of the work that reconnects and has created a groundbreaking framework for personal and social change. She has authored 13 books, most recently, A Wild Love for the World. Welcome, Joanna. So wonderful to have you with us today.
Becca, I'm so glad to be with you and to take part through you in this decade of regenerate work.
Thank you, Joanna. And Lydia, welcome. Lydia Violet is an Iranian-American multi-instrumentalist and musician, artist, scholar, and community organizer who has studied with Joanna for the past decade, learning how we can metabolize climate despair, eco-anxiety, and community traumas into energy for resilience, action, and community healing. She is a core Work That Reconnects facilitator and runs the Music is Medicine Project, a nonprofit dedicated to creating access to music and music education as tools for cultivating resilient cultures in our communities. So welcome, Lydia. Thank you for being with us today also.
Thank you. I'm excited to be, always happy to be here with you too.
It's wonderful to have you join us today for Voices of the Regenerative Decade. So I would love to start with just dropping in with you both and the amazing work that you've been doing in the world, which I feel is a lot of inner regeneration on the inner landscapes. And, you know, at this time, many would say that it's a time to be listening to the earth as to what she has to say to us about what needs to happen over the next 10, 20 years in our own evolutionary process. And so I'd love to start with the question or the inquiry of, you know, if the earth could speak at this time, what would she say to us?
She would say, darlings, come home. Recover from the amnesia that has beset your society, your culture, actually over the centuries of industrialism. Find your belonging. Wake up from the nightmare of the and the prison of the separate self that has bred so much anxiety and greed and militarism and constant waging war with each other on whatever side you are. Come home. I'm sick and we can't recover without each other. You are of me. All your long millennia of growing and evolving on this planet, you have belonged to me, and now, wonder of wonders, not only through the remembered teachings and the ancient rituals, but now through science as well. You, my children, are knowing that I am very much alive. But I'm calling you to wake up to who you really are. Part of me. And you can be my voice. And your hands can be guided in their regenerative work by knowing that.
Collapse into my arms. Collapse and collaborate. Yeah, I feel like it just, the homecoming, the invitation to homecoming that is so ever present in the generosity of recognizing what isn't working and that we have something to collapse into from there. We have a presence and an intelligence filled with wisdom and collaborative intelligence and willingness that is Gaia's way that she seems to operate, and that at any moment whenever we want, we could collapse into her and allow her to arise within us and inform the way that we interact with both the pain and the peril and the promise. We can't know the promise, and the promise, I think, can't be honest and strong unless we know the peril, because it's the peril that will inform accurately the promise, as well as all the gifts of the collaborative intelligence of Gaia. And so I think, yeah, I think that just stems off of what Joanna, what you just gave voice to.
So glad you said, Lydia, dear, that we can't go, happily nuzzling and nestling into her body without actually seeing the peril. And where do we see it? Well, we see it all around us. We see it in the conditions in which we've inflicted upon other species and upon ourselves, but it's also inside us. And we carry that recognition in our grief and in our fear and even in our outrage. So she asks us, don't you think, Lydia, to take it seriously?
100%. In fact, I think the gift is in the transformation of experience of grief and anger as not one of shame and weakness, but to orient ourselves to relate to that part of us as where our dignity lies, our solidarity with the web of life, our dignity of being part of a web of course we care about what happens. Of course I feel grief if a part of my larger body is being decimated, if members of my community are being, that's a sane, intelligent, dignified reaction rather than something to feel ashamed of because it doesn't make me contribute to a capitalist industry.
Yeah. One of the first times I realized that, or in a very different modality or spiritual tone, was with the Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, when he was asked, what do we most need to do for the healing of our world? And I think actually that his questioners were thinking, should we sit on the zafu, or should we run for parliament, or should we go out and climb on the barricades or build them? And nothing of that did he say. But you remember, because we've talked about it, what he said was, the most important thing for you to do is to hear within yourself the sounds of the earth crying. Well, that's amazing. That seems to imply quite clearly that it's within ourselves we can hear the earth crying. So the earth crying is in our hearts. It's not just our grief, it's the grief also of all the other species. It's the grief of the loss, it's the grief of the baked, deserted towns, the desertification of farmlands, the crippling and soiling of the rivers, the dead zones in the sea, and Gaia herself. And it's in us because so we, and I love the way you do this, Lydia. I love the way you help people, because Americans particularly, I know there are other folks part of this meeting, but we get hooked on looking optimistic and keeping smiling, and that's what helped the consumer society draw people in. But the optimism that we should stick on our faces, but that kept us from knowing our earth, and we know our power as earth, our power as ourselves, your power, my power, when we dare to draw from the deep well of our suffering and our grief as well. And you have a wonderful way of helping people do that.
I just got a new image. I just got, you know how in the Bodhichitta, there's an image for bodhichitta. So bodhichitta, as I relate to it and understand it, is written about as the most invaluable of all human qualities in this bodhichitta, and that it's both the ability to be with suffering without turning away, but it's also the impulse to do something about it, right? And so when I first learned about that from Joanna, I was like, hold everything. What happened to that?
Yeah.
What happened to that? It seems like everything rides on that. Our ability to respond, to humbly listen without turning away, and to respond. And so the image, I just got this new image of the tree that infinitely bears fruit. And what if grief is the water? Grief is the water that waters the generosity of spirit, that keeps us accurate, that keeps us bearing this fruit, where we can attune to both of the mystery and the gift of being alive at all, the joy, the beauty in being alive at all, and also that there are things that require attention and adaptation. And what if the pain that rides in on that attention can be the water for the tree of bodhicitta? I just put that together.
Well, that is gorgeous. And the ancient ones too. I remember when my teachers singing it, they say, all you need is bodhicitta, which is, maybe you better take a moment to explain that. But it was before she does, they image it, the ancient ones, as a flame in the heart. And my heart gets really hot inside, and it's hard and expensive, but you don't want that flame to go out. Whatever happens, you want that to keep on burning. Okay, honey, so give some words to what bodhicitta is.
I mean, I think so first of all, I think it's a more than human intelligence and presence. So I think that one way that you can physically give a metaphor for it is if you get a cut on your arm sends pain signals that awaken healing intelligences, which may be bodhicitta, in your body, which then rush to the scene of the cut to help heal it. And so I experience bodhicitta as healing intelligences on the planet that become awakened through, that is a response to suffering that wants mending.
It's like circulation, the way it went, so that a healing presence circulates. The blood circulates, the energy goes there, to boost the immune system, to boost the body's strength. And so it's there, even if you don't feel it. You may be feeling really pretty spent and grumpy, and I've had enough, and then you just say the word, just think of that flame. And it doesn't have to be your major characteristic or anything, but you open to it and it's coming in. So because we are in a larger body.
Exactly. You can reach out to it in others too. You don't have to hold it by yourself. It's not your personal, I'm alone on the planet and I'm the only one carrying this thing.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of people are talking now, those who are the most interesting people, about we're getting to so focused on helping things not fall apart from all these centuries of a dysfunctional civilization, and that we can give up a little bit, and that we can we're going to have to edit this out because I forgot what I was starting to say. All right, wait a minute, just a second. While we're editing that out, I want to open the door.
This is genuine revelation. This is why I love talking to Joanna, because we get in this mode where we just like open up all this stuff for each other.
It's great.
Okay, here I am. I was, you know what distracted me is that I just remembered that my granddaughter was here, who's home from college, and she came over to vacuum. And I thought to myself, because she's been working with Sunrise Movement, and I thought, why am I such a jerk? Why didn't I ask her to come in and just sit here to give us energy and enjoy listening? So I went to call her in, but she's gone downstairs to see her cousin, my other another grandchild who's home from college too. He just finished taking an exam by phone.
Maybe we should do that sometime. Is sit down with Lydia and talk to her about Sunrise Movement.
Yeah.
You got a few years in your sphere, it seems.
You know what I just thought about? I was just thinking about with bodhichitta and suffering, how something that, you know, the human legacy is so big and filled with such beauty and filled with such tragedy. And that what has happened when we push off through oppression, suffering onto certain demographics of people is that we ask them to bear the brunt of the wound. And what is being asked for right now, I think, is for as many of us to come online and share the responsibility and attention and truth speaking that bodhicitta demands of us in order to share the load, in order to take responsibility as a collective, whether it's to other human beings or to the more than human world, that we've kind of gone like this. I mean, the balance we've been off balance. And I think part of coming home to Gaia and collapsing in her arms is acknowledging, and the regenerative movement shows this, that we absolutely have the means to develop systems that take care of everybody. Absolutely, 100%. That intelligence exists on the planet, and we can collaborate with it to create a world with equity and generosity and means for far more people than have it right now. But it means shifting what's prioritized as valuable in the system, right? It means moving towards economies of care and regeneration and taking care of each other rather than just capitalizing on profit or whatever it is. I don't know, I just was...
No, but interestingly enough then, enter the pandemic.
Right.
I mean, this COVID-19, the impact on it is truly apocalyptic in the truest sense of that word, because the essential meaning of that word is revelation, unveiling. Apocalypse shows us what we need to see, what we have turned away from noticing or wanting to take seriously. It is showing us, look at the meat industry. Look at the suffering there. These Smithfield factories where they can slaughter and dismember and pack up 43,000 pigs in a day in one place. And that is, and the speed of it, the ill health of it is killing humans. So that makes us look there. The incarceration system. Look here. The physical health conditions of African Americans, even though it's almost 2 centuries since the Civil War, they're, what is it, 60% more likely to say. So that and not only is it revealing that, but it's revealing to people, I have noticed it where I live and where I'm hearing what's going on, that people are looking to take care of each other.
Yeah.
Even though they're sheltering in place. The amount of mutual aid, even that phrase, mutual aid, which was a favorite phrase of mine from studying it in my field work in Sri Lanka and studying it from its first use with Pyotr Kropotkin back in Russia. But now people are right, left, center, up, down, and sideways, looking for ways and enacting ways, like naturally turning. This is a transformation that I don't think people are going to want to go back to the highly competitive, over-exhausting, hurried pace of the speedy style of life that delivered us and as an offshoot of the consumer society.
So do you think this is a potent opportunity, this great pause we're in, Joanna, to actually reassess how we're operating as a civilization?
I do, Becca, and I feel that, and I hear it happening. Mm. I see it happening in me and my friends. I see it with my my children around me. I have 3 families of my children and around me in walking distance, and they're one has a lot of responsibility in his office for zero waste policies here and around the world, but now he's finding that he can do a lot of that at home and then save time from taking transportation to go into the city, and he's building things, and he's making a garden and building planters and getting involved. It's so that there's a kind of turning away from the pressured lifestyle that's at the core of what's been driving our economy, or what our economy is required.
And what's considered necessary, I think. What's considered fundamental to life continuing in our own lives and on the planet, right? So what's necessary when we collapse into the arms of Gaia is to take care of each other. What's necessary is to make sure we have access to health and well-being. What's necessary is our ability to nourish our internal, relational, and outer landscapes. That's what's necessary. Building corporate capitalism.
But it's also what we enjoy most, is what brings us alive.
Right.
Like suddenly people feeling more, they're finding a quality of life that they can grumble about because they have to keep social distance. And I grumble because I am lacking hugs when I'm sheltering in place alone with a big sign on the door. Stay out. But we go for walks, at any rate.
Well, we are coming to the end of our time together, but I did want to ask Joanna and Lydia, Do you have any final wisdom on how we can best find our place living in harmony with our earth during this potent opportunity and this pause that we're in? How can we find our place back in the web of life? You know, and I think the regenerative movement offers a lens of realizing that we can actually choose to be stewards and actually find our place in harmony with the web versus separate from it. So I just would love to have any wisdom that you want to pass on to listeners on how they can find their place again.
Yeah. Well, honor pleasuring the pleasures of the body, honoring that, taking time to sit in a warm, a sunny corner, feel the rhythms, sit and adopt a tree on your walks. I have one that I hug every time I go out. Let the natural voices of this incredible biosphere speak to you. Greet the animal inside you, the animal that you are, and come, because this is my time to come back to life. And the earth will speak to us through our pleasures and our appetites and our love of working together, our itch to link arms with each other and do something valuable. Trust that. Those other voices are not our own voices, the ones that are in the dictates of the corporate patterns of amplifying our reach and our stock in the. But you know, I hesitated there. I dropped away because the bottom's fallen out of the corporate capitalism. We are not going to be able to find our way back. So it's not a question of luring people to it, because there will only be, for the series when we either will be at each other's throats, fighting over the crumbs of what is left in the ruins of a capitalized system, or we will turn to regenerative production of agriculture, of technology, of the means that are there for us to the generation to save the rickety electric grids that we have mostly now. We're going to need something so much more functional and earth friendly. There's so much we're going to have to remake it all, I believe. So I'm so grateful for those that have been working now for a generation or two. That Daniel Wall's book on regenerative planning has been like, it gave me more hope for and more stamina to face the collapse of the industrial growth society than I'd had for a long time. We have a lot going for us if we just breathe deep and don't get scared.
Yeah, I mean, I think my own response is very much in line with that of listen and notice to the world that's around us and see each person as an expression of the intelligence of Gaia. Understand that you're not going to have all the answers, and neither is anybody else. It was never supposed to be like that. I think we get into big problems when we expect any one person to have a totality of knowledge rather than respecting the ecosystem of intelligence and skills and pleasures and gifts that we exist inside of, that we can amplify and be in collaboration with. And it doesn't mean that the suffering and the capitalist mindsets that have serious shadow work to do, and all these other ways of thinking aren't there. But I think we can choose to collaborate with life, and part of what that means is seeing and honoring the gifts and the quirks and the talents that other people bring to the table, and that the more than human world brings to the table. And stop thinking I have all the answers, or you got to think, like, do we need to upgrade our intelligence sometimes? Yeah, totally. Do we need to think critically about issues? Yes, totally. And I think we really got to get in the mindset of collaboration. Ecosystems collaborate with themselves. Gaia collaborates with herself. And I think that is going to be a major need. And I think that's what regenerative design is really good at. It says, look, this is already happening. We need to just get in there, collaborate with it, and use the particular gifts of the human spirit to collaborate even further with the natural intelligence that Gaia brings to the table. And isn't that a beautiful thing? And it can be filled with whatever we want to put into it. And that it's okay to be overwhelmed. And we're at a time where we need to learn the skills of metabolizing that overwhelm, of understanding its true nature, of falling back into each other's arms, of finding the people that you kiki with and you love being with, as we conspire to try and give future ones a chance here. It's not over yet. Joanna has always said, don't trust anyone who tells you we're going to make it out of this, and don't trust anyone who tells you we're not. We are in the knife's edge of uncertainty, which can liberate our truest intention independent of outcome. I don't know what's going to happen, but that doesn't impact what I want to do anyway. If it was all going to go to hell tomorrow, would I be mean today? No. I would still pledge myself to kindness, to power, to love, because I decide that those things are valuable. I don't need anyone else to tell me what's valuable or where my power is. I give my power to kindness and regeneration and collaboration, not because I know what's going to happen, but because those things for me have power today and is what is going to give birth to us getting out of this thing if we're going to get out of it. All right, I went on a little...
You went on a beautiful way.
Oh, that is so, yeah.
I must say, I love both of your voices together. And Lydia, I feel like you carry on Joanna's work in such a beautiful way. So it's just such a wonderful alchemy. Thank you so much.
I know that to me is the utmost blessing.
Beautiful, Joanna. Well, Lydia, I believe that you may have a song for us. Is that true?
I do. I have a song I can play that Joanna loves a lot, that Eileen O'Shaughnessy and we wrote on tour together in Scotland this past summer. And it feels very much like it came out in dedication to Joanna, to her work, to our larger community, to all the people caring about and continuing Joanna's work, and just all of the wisdom chasers. But this is in particular in dedication to Joanna. And it's called Let the Land Sing. And something that I think is good to say about the song is every time you hear I've always been right here, we realized after we wrote it that was Gaia. That was Gaia speaking through us, which Joanna helped teach me to do, is how to hear the voice of the earth within me. Where are we going to? Where did I come from? What does it mean to all be bones under the same old sun? I've always been right here. What is it that we hold? Can you tell me, what is it holding my feet to the ground as it shakes? I've always been right here. So let the land sing through you, like the rolling holy. Let the land sing through you, like the rolling holy. Ooh, 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 trees, my lungs, miss my breath. That moon is blooming in my chest. Courage, my love, your roots go deep, down deep. Scrambled stardust and mud make up my own bones and blood. Ooh, I've always been right here. So let the land sing through you, like the rolling holy. Let the land sing through you, like the rolling holy. And then they came with their torches and their guns, and so my friends gathered one by one by one by one. I asked the spider how she weaves her web, and she replied, my dear, thread by thread by thread by thread, like ancestors with songs in their past. And they become us track by track by track by. What is the mud that made you? What is the mud that made you? What is the mud that made you? I love the mud that made you. What is the mud that made you? What is the mud that made you? What is the mud that made you? So let the land sing through you, like the rolling holy. Let the land sing through you, like the rolling holy. Oh, let the land sing through you. Let the land sing through you. Ooh, 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 ooh,
Thank you so much, Lydia. That was beautiful. And thank you so much, Joanna. I feel like the earth is celebrating this conversation today. And
It's been such a pleasure.
it's such an honor, Joanna, really. And Lydia also. Any final words before we sign off today?
Just if you are interested in diving even deeper into all of these thoughts, this work, there's Work That Reconnects, which is something you can look up. There's a website, workthatreconnects.org. My organization, Music as Medicine Project, also has resources about learning, online webinars, and support groups that meet every 2 weeks doing Joanna Macy's work and music, and all at musicasmedicineproject.org. You can look up Lydia Violet and find an album that I made called Already Free, which is completely in dedication and nourishing us right now. And Joanna has a lot of books that you can check out. And yeah, let's just keep the goodness flowing for each other so we can stay as strong as we can right now. And I love you. I love you, Joanna, and I love you, Becca, and I love all of you out there that are listening to this.
Praise be.
Well, I'm very grateful. I'm very touched. I'm very honored. Thank you so much. And this has been Joanna, Macy, and Lydia Violet, and I'm your host, Becca Dakini, on Voices of the Regenerative Decade. Thanks for joining us here at One Earth Live, and we'll see you next time.